So the most recent Nintendo Direct is literally just hours away. I just figured, why not pass the time by talking about this thing that I've already sort of chewed my brother's ears off about enough. So it's like, why not, go online and find some fresh ears to chew on, if you know what I mean. I just want to discuss one particular part of the game that really personally intrigues me. There's a lot that Nintendo has chosen to keep quiet about with this game. In fact, I would argue that almost all of the game, besides the fact that it will also take place in the skies and that Ganondorf might be returning, um, we really know next to nothing about this game. And one of the major things that we don't know that I want to talk about in this video is the overarching tone of the game. Tone is a very important part of Zelda games. It's a very important part of any game, in my opinion, especially one that wants to tell a story or have like an actual like setting that they explore to a significant degree. In the case of Zelda games, each one has a very unique, specific tone. It's obviously not the only tone that the game has. In fact, that's something that Zelda games often do very well, is they make sure that there's a wide variety of emotions for the player to experience throughout the journey. However, there is usually like a majority, kind of like what do you feel during the majority of the experience, right? In the case of The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, I would argue that it's like very cheerful and whimsical kind of overall tone. Obviously, once again, it's not always like that. It can be violent. It can be scary and disturbing even at times. But for the majority of the time, I would argue that the core feel of Wind Waker is cheerful and whimsical, right? In the case of Twilight Princess, it's very dire, a little more serious, I would say. And then you have something like Breath of the Wild, which feels more, I would say, from in most people's opinion, they'd be like described as very quiet, somber, sort of like sad, but also peaceful kind of experience. Um, but the most important part about this is that the point that I want to make at least is that you can usually determine the tone of a Zelda game just by watching their trailers. So just by looking at these trailers, it's very clear that you can decipher like how they're going to feel, right? It's like, oh, okay, I got it. This is the proper way to advertise a game, right? To get you prepared for like to give you a taste of what the actual game is going to be like, and in terms of what kind of tone you're going to be experienced for the majority of the experience. All of these trailers do a phenomenal job at exactly that. Um, but then we look at Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like with the three trailers that we've been given so far, and yes, they have been teasers, but those can still give you a good idea of what to expect, especially since the game is literally now only months away, and these are the only trailers that Nintendo have decided to show to us. And as advertisements should do, they should give you, once again, a good idea as to what you're going to be experienced with the final product. And so with that being said, can we determine the tone of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom by watching its trailers? Well, the answer is shockingly no. It's very interesting because again, like this isn't just the case for like Nintendo games or Zelda games. This is the case for almost all products of any sort, like right, like of any form of like entertainment, whether it be movies or or games or even like a demonstration of like a book of some sort, right? Or like I should say like an ad for a book. They usually present themselves in a way where it's like, hey, this is the kind of like this is the vibe that's going to be put into this experience that you're about to buy, right? Like they want you to get a good idea that, hey, if you're advertising a horror movie, you advertise it like a horror movie, like you let people know you were supposed to be scared while watching this, or you're supposed to be happy while watching this romantic comedy, you're supposed to be sad while watching this drama or tragedy or whatever it might be that they are advertising to you or trying to sell to you. But you can't determine what Tears of the Kingdom's overarching tone is. It's like if you look at the first trailer, people were like, well, this is very dark, this is very creepy and unsettling. The music is very creepy and unsettling. The setting is very strange and very disturbing in some cases. The imagery was very disturbing with Ganondorf and everything. And everyone saw that initial teaser trailer, the very first thing they decided to show to us, and we're like, okay, this game is going to be more in line with Majora's Mask or Twilight Princess in terms of its tone. But then you look at the very next trailer, the one that came out 2 years after the fact at E3 2021, and it's the exact opposite situation. The game appears more hopeful and energetic. The music is more courageous and bombastic and loud and exciting. The setting is gorgeous and it's high above the clouds as opposed to being deep below the ground like the first trailer was. It's literally polar opposites in terms of tone, which confuses like the players. It's like, well, then which one is it? Is this going to be a darker Zelda game like Twilight Princess? It's going to be a more whimsical, kind of more like magical kind of experience like Wind Waker or to some degree Ocarina of Time. But then you watch the third trailer, the one that was just recently released, or not so much recently now, but the most recent trailer given to us that revealed the title Tears of the Kingdom. That trailer, in terms of tone, feels far closer to Breath of the Wild. It's like Breath of the Wild is, once again, a more a somber, kind of more quiet kind of experience. That trailer felt very quiet, somber, and mysterious. That was like, I would say mysterious is probably like the best word to describe it. And that's how I would also describe Breath of the Wild's tone. So all three of these trailers are completely different from one another. The first trailer is more in line with Twilight Princess. The second trailer is more in line with probably, like I'd say, Skyward Sword, naturally. Not just due to the setting, but also the music choice. And the third trailer is more in line with the game, with the previous title, Breath of the Wild. And to me, this is very telling of what Nintendo are trying to do with this game. I think that Nintendo are being very, very explicit about what kind of trailers they wanted to show, how much they were willing to show, and what kind of, to the point of this video, what kind of tone they were hoping to demonstrate with each of these trailers. And so considering that each one is so different from the last and we still don't know what this game overall feel will be, I think that that's Nintendo's way of saying that there will be, just one central tone that this game will focus on like all other Zelda titles have. But rather, they're essentially taking 3 Legend of Zelda experiences and jam-packing it into one overworld, right? So it's like, while you're exploring the original overworld from the first game, that's sort of like the familiar earthly realm, if you will. And that's, of course, going to be a tone that's far closer to the original Breath of the Wild, because naturally you're exploring the same overworld, so it's probably going to still have that very somber, sparse piano music playing in the background to sort of set the overall vibe of the game, I suppose. And then you have the world above, which is sort of like, I guess you could say the Sky Islands are like the heavenly realm, right? You have the earthly realm in the middle and then the heavenly realm above. And the Sky Islands are, of course, going to give off a vibe far closer to Skyward Sword, or to some extent Ocarina of Time, And then you go down to the depths below, and this is where you have like the Hell Realm, right? This is literally the underworld of sorts. And of course, that being the case, it's going to have a very dark and creepy kind of environment. It's going to be very you're going to be like constantly on edge while exploring this particular area. And for me, like this fixes not only a major problem that Breath of the Wild had, one of the few criticisms that can be pointed towards it, and one of the criticisms that I will absolutely agree was a problem, was the fact that the game did have sort of like the issue that a lot of open world games have, which is sort of the copy and paste kind of feeling of things, right? Like the kind of like you start to understand like what you're going to be experiencing for the majority of the time within the first, like I'd say 25 hours or so of what you're probably likely going to be spending hundreds of hours into. And while there are absolutely like mysteries and cool things to discover that are very unique later on in the game, in my case it was Terrytown. I didn't even experience that until after the credits rolled, which was a awesome, like one of my favorite experiences in a Zelda game, and it happened outside of the main story. However, I'd say that most people would agree that the vast majority of your discoveries are like, there's going to be shrines or Korok seeds. And once you discover that, the discoveries do become a little less potent, I guess you could say. So one of the things that I think Nintendo doing this by having the tone be split into 3 different locations, and the tone will dramatically shift depending on which one of those locations you are exploring. That problem of fatigue and the mystery starting to fade away, it doesn't seem like it would be that much of a problem anymore, because it's like whenever the fatigue does start to set in and you do start to like get tired of the sort of like slow piano music and the more quiet, somber, lonely experience that Breath of the Wild provides, you can just ascend up to the clouds and get a far more exciting kind of tone sort of like set in. And then when you wanted to feel scared and on edge, feeling like more like you're playing like a From Software game or something, you descend into the depths below. So that's very, very fascinating to me. That sounds like it probably sounds way too ambitious, especially if I'm, kind of like assuming that the Sky Islands and the underground exploration, if there is any, which all things seem to point to that to be the case, that there will be some form of underground exploration. But in this video, it makes it seem like I'm kind of like suggesting that the Sky Islands and the underground exploration will be just as large and expansive as the overworld from the first game, which may be a little too ambitious, but considering that this game has been in development for longer than any Zelda game ever has been, and it's a direct sequel that's reusing multiple assets, including the overworld itself, I don't think it's too far-fetched to assume that Nintendo would do something that ambitious. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say in this video. I just like tone is a very important part to a Zelda game, in my opinion. It's one of the main reasons why I love the franchise. And considering that we haven't gotten a clear understanding of what the tone will be based on the trailers, leads me to just kind of like have all of these crazy ideas go into my head. But considering that we're only a few hours away from getting the likely answers to these questions, I hope that this fills your time before that happens, and that even after we get whatever new information that is provided to us at this latest direct, that you may still find some value in this video. So have a good one.